The Center for Audit Quality presents Profession in Focus.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of Profession in Focus. I'm Cindy Fernelli, the Executive Director of the Center for Audit Quality. I'm very pleased to have with us today as our guest Sandra Richtermeyer, who is the President of Beta Alpha Psi, as well as the Dean of the Manning School of Business at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. Sandra, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning.
So we have a lot to talk about, so let's dive right in. You know, we at the CAQ spend a lot of time, particularly in our anti-fraud work, talking about what we call the financial reporting supply chain. And we define that as the board of directors, management, internal auditors, and external auditors. And of course, all of those parties are working on behalf of investors. And you could put that under the umbrella of corporate governance. And I know that's something that you spend a lot of time researching and looking at. So how do you bring that corporate governance perspective into the classroom and specifically helping students understand the roles and responsibilities of the different players?
Well, I think that's such a great question. And one of the most important things that I think we can do while students are in school is to help them understand the concept of what a board of directors does. Because really, that's where it starts, the tone at the top, at the board level. And oftentimes when you look at what is included in a standard business program or an accounting program, we get into a lot more detailed areas that are absolutely important for corporate governance. But the concept of, starting at the top of the organization, one of the most important roles of a board of directors, of course, is to, hire, fire, evaluate, compensate the CEO. And many times when we're educating our students in business, we're starting in the C-suite, which is important and absolutely critical. But I think it's really important to think about how students view the role of a board, how they impact the organization in terms of their relationship with the CEO, how that fits into the overall performance and ability for an organization to implement their strategic plan, to serve the value chain, the supply chain, to serve all of the stakeholders well. We always think about, what is the president, the CEO, what's happening in that role, but we've got to ramp it up another level. Some of the key elements of corporate governance is teaching students, what happens in the boardroom. How does the board culture affect the decisions of the board? What is the board structure? How are the board committees set up? Things that they may not even think about. One of the best exercises that I think I've ever done over the years is I ask students to pick a company that they're interested in, a large company, and go out to the public face of record, the website, and see who's on the board. And they start looking at different organizations and they'll see pictures of boards of directors, they'll see bios, they'll see information disclosures.
Some are even doing videos, aren't they?
Oh, yes. I mean, and what a great, and what,
to get to know a board member through a video that he or she puts out.
And students will go, they'll look at the board and they'll see, wow, everybody here is the same gender, the same age. How does that work? And then we start getting into the conversation about, diversity, how diversity of thought, how that impacts the boardroom, how that might map into other elements of diversity. But it's really enlightening for them. And I feel oftentimes when we have that first exercise in the corporate governance classroom, they won't ever go to work for a company again or invest in a company where they don't look at actually who is on the board first and foremost. And that whole concept of governance from the board level, I think, is it's a big mystery. It also gives us an opportunity to help students understand looking at how to look at an organization across all functional areas and how those roll up, to the top level.
And who oversees all of those functions?
Yes, absolutely.
Which, of course, is the board.
The oversight function, yep.
So previously you've been a department chair, and now you're the dean at the business school at Massachusetts Lowell. Tell me what you see as some of the challenges and opportunities for evolving curriculum to meet the needs not only of people who are going out and working in audit firms, but also people that might be working at companies as in the corporate finance department, so what we would call the preparers.
Right. Well, I think it's very challenging to make sure that your curriculum is fresh and current and that when a practitioner or when the business community looks at it, they see something that's very relevant and ties into what they're concerned about, with their own company, whether it's a firm working in a corporate environment or in a public accounting firm or a nonprofit or governmental entity. How can students take what they're learning and map it into career success as fast as possible, because they want them to hit the ground running when they graduate. And I think sometimes we have the challenge of textbooks and curricular materials that might be 3 years behind. And once you get to that point and you're thinking, wow, things have changed, there's emerging trends, here are some of the things we need to be teaching, it's almost too late to get it into the curriculum and get it where it's relevant and the students understand it. One of those concepts I think that's very interesting is risk management. Risk management is a really big deal for companies right now, and looking at how to approach risk management, how to integrate it with their strategy. And that's oftentimes just completely non-existent in business programs. It might be in a finance program where they're maybe talking about insurance or some more traditional type topics, but strategic risk management and how it impacts the organization is oftentimes missing. Some other things that I think we could do better on are cybersecurity, information technology aspects, and not from such a theoretical standpoint, but a practical hands-on. I mean, they need to understand the theory behind it, but we need to have more more experiential learning in those areas so that students really grasp the concept and it's not just some flat concept they read in a book. And I think that engaging more with the professional community is absolutely essential. I'm really inspired by some of the conversations that are happening right now that are kind of opening up the door for having practitioners more involved in accreditation processes and looking at the big picture as to what our outcomes are from a business school standpoint and then going down to a programmatic standpoint. So it's very challenging. Tighter relationships with academics and practitioners are absolutely essential. So as a dean, I try very hard to get my faculty to go to practitioner events and interact and have dialogue with the professional community so that they hear what are their pain points, what are the things they're focusing on, where do they see their businesses going. They can come back, tell those stories in the classroom, inspire the students, and I think that's really important.
So speaking of the students, there's a lot of competition for the best and the brightest students, not just in the business schools but across the board. And that's something that we at the CAQ and the firms who are our members spend a lot of time thinking about. Do you think students appreciate the benefits and opportunities of careers in auditing?
I do. I think they think it's important, but I think they could learn a lot more about what it really means to be an auditor and the big picture, how important that role is in disclosing information and our capital market system, right? I think we oftentimes, in grad school, we might be able to get that point across a little bit better. But if students are taking undergraduate auditing courses, they're really focused on very, detailed aspects of auditing. And I think we can ramp up the conversation a bit. One of the things that I believe personally is that a career in audit prepares you for so many business opportunities, even if you don't stay in accounting. Starting out with your career in auditing is amazing. That what you get to see, that enterprise-wide lens, you get to see across the organization, looking at so many different processes, how things fit together. And oftentimes it's hard to really describe that in a classroom setting. And that's where I think the more we can interact with the practitioner community or look at the paths of people who started in audit and maybe 10 years, where do they go? Some of them might still be in audit, some of them might be in a CFO role, some of them might be in another type of a business role. Yeah, and how did that start in auditing really give them that launching pad to move forward? And certainly there's so many great areas that students in accounting and finance can enter, but I'm always have been a big fan of starting in audit, and I felt that my own experience, it was absolutely fundamental for me to learn those skills.
Well, I suppose that this is a good transition then into Beta Alpha Psi, because that's a supplement to what happens in the classroom. And one of the things that we hear our member firms say is that an attribute that they look for in students when they are recruiting on campus is leadership ability. And that is something that I think Beta Alpha Psi can really help students with. So talk to us a little bit about how Beta Alpha Psi helps students develop leadership skills.
Well, one of the things that I'm always telling students when they join Beta Alpha Psi is, you're entering a profession where engagement in continuous learning is absolutely lifelong. And Beta Alpha Psi oftentimes is the first professional association that they really get involved in. And I know it's an honorary organization, there are certain requirements to join, but it's, to me, I don't know what my career would have been like without being so involved with so many different professional associations. It's been something I've been, very heavily engaged with for years. And I think when they realize that it's not about getting a job, you don't join Beta Alpha Psi to get a job. The students are getting recruited earlier and earlier in their college career. It's about engaging in activities that allow you to develop your leadership skills much earlier than you would ever have in practice. When they start their jobs, they're going to be very much focused on building technical skill sets before they're really in supervisory roles or leadership roles, although they can lead every day in what they do, but more formalized roles. So engagement in Beta Alpha Psi allows them to serve, maybe as an officer in their chapter or just an active volunteer, leading an initiative, working towards a project with their peers and moving it forward. And that experience is to me fundamental. I always say one of the best ways to learn leadership skills is to lead volunteers, because they don't have to follow you.
Right.
And they can learn that skill in Beta Alpha Psi, as they have to motivate, engage, and inspire their peers to work with issues with their chapter, whether they participate in the regional or national or international type activities. There's just an opportunity to learn to lead all around. It's also an opportunity to really help them develop their soft skills. And we definitely focus on soft skills in college curriculum. It's not that we don't think those are important, because we absolutely do. But this is a way for them to practice it, maybe take what they've learned in the classroom, practice it in an environment where they're looking at technical topics, team building topics, service-related activities, and put those skills to work. So I view Beta Alpha Psi as an absolutely wonderful co-curricular activity, one that I think students, when they participate in, it's some of the best memories that they have of their college years, and they take those and map it into future contributions to the profession. Because I believe starting with the roots that Beta Alpha Psi provides, it helps people become very engaged with all the different professional associations, watching what's happening in our profession. We're in a profession that's rapidly changing and evolving, and staying in tune and connected is so important.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us this morning.
Well, thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. And thanks to all of you for joining this edition of Profession in Focus. I'll see you next time.